While our show focuses mainly on board games, there are a lot of other topics we like to discuss, aside from lawnmowers and food, obviously, but things like TV shows and movies and video games, which is why when I decided to do my list of top things in 2019, I wanted to include other topics besides just board games. So without further ado, here is my fully 100% biased, totally subjective list of top 3 things from 2019. Marty's top 3 list of things from 2019. Yeah, we spare no expense on this show. Now let's kick it off with TV shows. I've always been an avid TV show watcher, but it's harder and harder to watch all the best shows because of all these different services that are coming out with shows. Sure, you have your standard networks, but now there's HBO and Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, etc. So it's hard to keep up with everything. So I just ranked the things that I've watched and what I like. And now let's kick off with the top 3. And coming in at number 3 is Jack Ryan Season 2. I've always been a fan of the Tom Clancy movies and video games based in those worlds of espionage and political intrigue. So when this show came on Amazon, I was really interested to see what it was all about. And as much as I enjoyed season 1, I think I actually like season 2 better. The names, the places and everything were easy to follow along. There were some tense moments. I enjoyed that there were a couple stories happening concurrently. They ended up crossing over each other. I just thought that was really well done. And even though it's still hard not to see John Krasinski as this, you watch enough of Jack Ryan and it kind of leaves you behind, you accepting for the role that he's in now. And number 2 is Sabrina the Teenage Witch Season 2. When this came out on Netflix last year, I was somewhat tentative about it because it was by the same people that did Archie on the CW. But I thought, okay, I like the mystical sort of thing, and I know the story of Sabrina. I started watching and realized this is a really good, gripping TV show. And it reminded me a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I was a huge fan of, where you had this young heroine that was just not afraid of anything and would take anything on. And that's pretty much the way Sabrina is. When season 2 came out this year, it got a lot darker and a lot grittier, which I really appreciated. So even though it still had some of those lighter Sabrina the Teenage Witch moments, it was very much dark and gritty, and I just really got into the story, and I can't wait to see where they go with season 3. So that means coming in at number 1 should be really no surprise to anybody that's enjoying TV right now. Yes, The Mandalorian. How good is that TV show? I had no idea it was going to be as good as it was. Now, granted, when I heard that the showrunner was going to be Jon Favreau, who's given us such classics such as Elf.
I love you, I love you, I love you!
And also he kicked off the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man. But when I heard he was running this, I thought, okay, this is in good hands. You start watching the show, you come out with an iconic character which has taken the internet by storm. Yes, I'm talking about Baby Yoda, that everybody just loves. It is what I want a Star Wars show to be, and it really put a damper for me on Rise of Skywalker because I liked Mando so much that to me Rise of Skywalker didn't even match the level of Star Wars-ness that Mando has. So there you go, my top 3 TV shows. With that, let's go from the little screen to the big screen. Each year on our podcast, we always have our big summer movie preview show where we talk about a lot of movies coming out. So I like to go in the theater and watch a lot of different movies, but it just so happens that a lot of really good movies come out at the end of the year. So the movie 1917, which is just in limited release right now, I've not been able to see, but from the things I heard about it, I think I'll really like it. And I was really wanting to get the theater to see Ford versus Ferrari because I've heard a lot of great things about it. But there's a chance those could have ended up in the top 3, but since they aren't, here's my top 3. I mentioned earlier Jon Favreau kicking off the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man, and 10 years later and 22 movies later, we come to the end game, which wraps up this entire arc of all these movies that's come out. All these different characters have been introduced over time and culminated in one final movie. And I don't think it could have been any better than what it was. Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel Studios, to take that from day one all the way to now and give us a gripping story with all these different characters. And the people in the theater just loved that movie. And we walked out, we were talking about it. We had exciting moments. It was a good story. There was fan service. There was laughing. There was crying. It was just so well done. I just don't know how it could have been any better. So Endgame is my number 3 movie. I'm a sucker for Quentin Tarantino movies. So when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, I was in the theater the first weekend to see it, and it did not disappoint. If you like his style of movies, then you're probably going to like this one. I also like period movies, and this takes place in the 60s. And it's really cool to see all these different dynamics that happened during the 60s. You know, everybody's smoking, everybody's driving around, not wearing seatbelts. You know, even though it's like, what? Well, wow, it's 50 years ago. Anyway, still, it was a different time back then. It was cool seeing this on the screen. But I think the thing I liked about it was a buddy movie. Two guys who are really good friends, relying on each other, helping each other out, always there for each other. It just gives you those warm feels. And the end of the movie, wow, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you need to go watch it and see the end of it, because it's one of those things that you're going to talk about with friends and family and discuss and analyze for quite a while. It was so well done. And coming in at number 1, which was a surprise for me because I wouldn't have thought this when I first heard about this movie coming out, was Joker. Now, I've always been a fan of Joker, and I heard that they were going to come out with an origin story. I was not a big fan of that, because as a comic book fanboy, I've always liked the idea of not really knowing where the Joker came from. Yeah, there has been comics that kind of delve into where it came from, but that was the mystery. It's like, which one is really true? And even in Christopher Nolan's movies, the Joker in that, he was always giving these different stories of how he got the scars and his past and everything. So even in that movie, his history was shrouded in mystery, but in here they're going to kind of lay it out for you. So I was like, I don't know, because I really don't want to know, and I don't want to feel empathy for him or anything like that. But when I got to the theater and watched it and it came out, I was going, okay, that was really well done. Some awards are starting to be announced right now. Joaquin Phoenix needs to be nominated for something for acting, because he just did an incredible job. The music was amazing. There was this theme of using like this cello, this single cello whenever he's on screen. It was just very dark and droning. The soundtrack just really helped make the movie too. But to see how this guy goes from this to what you end up knowing being the Joker was just really, really well done. It was shot so well, and it's one of those movies that you just talk about with friends and stuff when it's over. You analyze the movie. It's like, what did that mean? Did that really happen? What exactly meant by that? And when there's a movie that keeps me talking and thinking about it, it's going to be way up there in the book for me. And that's why Joker is the number 1 movie for me in 2019. Hold it, let's pause for a second. Since I recorded this video, I had the chance to go and see Ford versus Ferrari, and it was an excellent movie. It's a true story based on 2 guys who were asked by Ford Motor Company to try to build a car to beat Ferrari at the Le Mans. Again, it's one of those buddy movies I really like. The story was engaging. Christian Bale has been nominated for some acting awards, which he deserves. However, as good as it was, I don't think it's going to crack my top 3 for the year, but it for sure comes in at number 4. I used to play a lot more video games than I do now, or get a chance to do now, but still I play every once in a while. I've mainly been playing on the Switch, so let's throw in some top video games of the year. First is Slay the Spire, and this is available on several platforms. What I was excited about this game is this is a video game that uses deck building as the way to do combat. So much like in our regular deck building games and board games and everything, you're going to get some cards, you're going to throw away cards, you're going to add cards, build a deck, and when you face a monster, you're going to deal out some cards, deal some damage, prep some spells and everything. And this is a roguelike game where you get to see how far you can go. Can you get all the way to the end to beat the final boss? And if you can't, you have to start all over again and rebuild your deck and everything. So if you like roguelike games and you love deck building mechanic, go check out Slay the Spire, which also was just recently released on the Switch. When I first heard about the game Untitled Goose Game, I thought, what a stupid name. And then I saw a trailer for it and just could not stop laughing. In this game, you're playing as a goose, and you're basically irritating the village, going around and stealing their stuff. Now, the reason why you're stealing their stuff is because this is a puzzle. As you start playing the game, it gives you a list of tasks that you need to do, and it could be steal something, put it over here, get somebody out of a room, run somebody around, and you go around and you just bother people by pressing a honk button, and it gets their attention and it gets them flustered, but it's just so funny, and the soundtrack is so adorable. It's a short game, but it's one of those games that was like such a great idea and so well done. So if you're looking for a quick, fun puzzle game, go check out Untitled Goose Game, which is also available on several platforms now. And my number 1 video game of the year, Zelda Link's Awakening. I played this game many years ago when it came out as the Link's Awakening DX version, which was on the Game Boy Advance, and I really enjoyed playing the game back then. The story was never one of my favorite Zeldas, but I still enjoy any top-down style of Zelda video game. So when this was being remastered and re-released, and with these new style of graphics, which I thought was really good, I thought I got to play through this again. It was very nostalgic going back and playing some of the same dungeons, but I had such a great time with it. And anytime there's a good solid Zelda game, it will usually come out on the top of the list for me for the top game of the year. So how do I keep up with all this stuff with video games and TVs and movies? Well, there's some YouTube channels that I watch. So here are some of my top pop culture YouTube channels. Number 3 for me is a channel that started a little over a year ago, and that is Girlfriend Reviews. This is taken from the prospect of a girlfriend who watches her boyfriend play video games because she's not really into playing them, and then gives a review on a game. The style that they have and everything, and the way they shoot the video, and the way that it's scripted and everything, it's funny, it's well thought out. Lots of times it's not about the video game, it's about maybe what's going on in the game. There may be some subject matter they want to talk about. They release a video about once a week. Even with the channel this new, they were up for the Streamy Awards this year for best video game channel content. So go check out Girlfriend Reviews. It is just really well done. Number 2 is the person that I really enjoy the most when it comes to movie reviews, and that's Jeremy Johns. Typically when he likes a movie, I'm gonna like it too, but I just also like his style of reviews. He just stands in front of basically a green screen and talks, but he's very engaging. He's funny. I like the way he does the jump cuts and everything. It's one of those things that even if I'm not interested in the movie, I'll watch it just to kind of see his take on it. So he's my number 1 movie reviewer. And my number 1 YouTube reviewer is a video game reviewer, specifically for Switch games, and that's Beat 'em Ups. This is a person that lived in Australia that's now living in the States. He releases a few videos a week, but again, it's not his content, but his style that I really like. I think he's funny, he's enjoyable to watch, he's a very positive person. He doesn't like to put things down, but he'll be honest about things like that. But even when he does, he has a good time while doing it. Again, he just has just amazing energy and great presence on the screen. I just enjoy watching him, and just kind of like lifts you up. And he also keeps you very up to date on a lot of Switch games, especially indie games, which those are coming out all the time, and he always lets you know the best ones that you need to check out from the eShop. Next up, let's look at top albums of the year, and it's one of those things that I don't listen to a lot of pop stuff. I don't listen to the things that are really popular on the charts, so when I look at the top of the charts for 2019, the things that aren't on my list are acts like Rhapsody, Lizzo, Bon Iver, Big Thief, Billie Eilish, Wayne's Blood, Young Thug, Ariana Grande, and coming in at number 1 is Lana Del Rey. I haven't heard of any of these people, and it's like, I know people are going like, okay, boomer. But hey, I admit it, I'm not hip, so I just kind of like what I like. And coming in at number 3 for me is a band called Thank You Scientists with their album Terraformer. This is a band I had discovered a couple years ago, and they're a progressive, big band, swing, jazz, soul, funk, rock, pop group. They're kind of one of these that do a lot of different genres. They're a bigger band with a lot of different members and a horn section, and they have some funky elements to them and some progressive elements to them, and that's why I think I like them so much, because it's really hard to label them what they really are. And I liked their album from a couple years ago, so I heard they came out with a new album this year. I immediately started listening to it and loved it. And they're a band out of New Jersey, just been around for a while. I really want to go see them in concert because I think that'd be amazing. So that's Thank You Scientists and Terraformer. Coming in at number 2 is an album from one of my favorite bands of all time, and that's Dream Theater and their album Distance Over Time. Now, as a Dream Theater fan, the past few albums have been somewhat lackluster. They've been good, probably better than most things out there, but measured against their own standards, it wasn't that great. But this album has really put them back on top. This is old school Dream Theater. I love the sound of them. I got to actually see them in concert as they toured for this album, and they got to play some songs from this album. They replayed an older album they were celebrating the anniversary for that was just really good. And at the beginning of the year, when I heard Dream Theater was coming out with a new album, I would assume that, oh yeah, that would probably be my number 1 album of the year, but I was wrong. Because the number 1 album for me this year is Opeth's In Cauda Venenum. In Cauda Venenum. It's Latin. A few years ago, Opeth changed their sound, going from the growling type of vocals and the more heavy metal sound to more of the smooth vocals and a more proggy sound. This split the fan base. Some liked it, some didn't. I think this album's going to really bring those two together because it has a lot of the new elements, the smooth vocals, the proggy part, but has some heavy elements from their earlier albums, which really just puts this album on top, and many of the fans love this album. Everything is really good on this album. Michael Eckerfeld did a fantastic job writing the songs and singing them, and the musicianship is just top notch. The drumming on this album is phenomenal. And there were another one of those bands that I've seen in concert before and was really wanting to see on this tour, and they just didn't come anywhere close to me. But regardless, it's still my number one album of the year. It's one that I listen to all the time, and that's Opeth, and then that Latin name in Cauda Venenum. Okay, this is a board game channel, so let me just throw out some board games I like this year, but I'm not going to rank them. No, because in February we do our big Squirrely Awards where we announce our top games of the year, but I will give you some of my top games over this past year, and this is going to be in alphabetical order, starting with A City of the Big Shoulders. This was a game that I really didn't know much about till I went and saw it at Gen Con. It was a heavy economic game that has some worker placement elements to it. I've come to find out I really like economic games, and so when I played this one, I just fell in love with it. I've played this game many times over the year, and even though it's a heavier game, it could take 2 to 3 hours or so, it's one that I've just really enjoyed. Next is Empires of the North. This was a game that I was kind of worried that it was going to replace Imperial Settlers for me, which is also from Portal Games and in the same universe. But it does not, because it is different enough from Imperial Settlers where it has a different feel for it, and has a really cool action selection mechanic, and everybody has their own unique decks, so there's a lot of room for expansion in the future. I've played this game a few times. I played Imperial Settlers a lot, and yet they feel different enough to me where I keep both on the shelf, so that's why Empires of the North is for sure one of my top games of 2019. I mentioned I like economic games, and earlier this year Raccoon Tycoon was released, which is a lighter form of an economic game, but it still gives me those feels of having this market where these resources are changing in prices and you're buying and you're selling. There's a really cool drafting and auction mechanic in this game. I tend to like auction games. It plays in a very short time, and so I get my enjoyment of an economic game in a short time, and the graphics and everything, the world is just really cool. So Raccoon Tycoon, even though it came out earlier this year, it is still one of my top games over the past 365 days. I love Euros that I can play in like 45 minutes to an hour. Just kind of my thing. Because sometimes I want to play a Euro but don't want to spend a lot of time in it, which is why I've played a lot of Ragusa this year from Capstone Games. This is a game that just keeps coming out on our game group. We got like 45 minutes to spend. It's one of those that the game's easy to set up, and if you played it before, then you just kind of sit down and start playing, and when you're done, it's easy to put away. There's a lot of simultaneous actions going on, because when somebody takes a turn, you also might get to take a turn also, which makes it just one of those that we just keep pulling off the shelf because it's that enjoyable. That's Ragusa from Capstone Games. And finally is Undaunted. This is from the team of designers that also made War Chest in 2018 that I really liked. This is a 2-player game. It's a tactical war game, but you make movements in combat by use of deck building mechanics. So you have a deck at the beginning of the game, a standard deck. Over the course of the game, you're going to add cards to your deck that are actual units that are on the board. And when you play those units, you can move with them, you can attack with them. And when those units die, those cards are removed from the game. So it's just like, you have so many gunners or whatever. If enough of them die, they're just going to be lost. You won't have any gunners anymore. So they've really taken this really cool deck building mechanic and stuck it into a tactical war game where it just all fits and really works well together. It's one of those games just really took me by surprise, making it also one of my top games of 2019. That's my top threes of a lot of different things in 2019. And of all those things between TV shows and music and movies and YouTube channels and board games, let me know what you think. Give me your 100% biased, subjective top 3 of any of those things. Maybe there's some TV shows I haven't checked out and need to go check out. Same thing with movies or board games. I'm always looking at other people's lists and see what they like and everything, because I may like them too. And hopefully out of all that stuff that I mentioned, maybe you'll find a movie or TV show or album that you might want to check out sometime. time. So please go down in the comments, let me know your top things, and if you've liked this type of content, please like and subscribe, and let me know if you'd like me to cover some other things throughout the year that aren't just board game related but are more pop culture related between movies and TV shows. And with that, I hope everybody had a wonderful 2019. We're kicking off 2020 with a lot of brand new games and TV shows and music and movies, and I can't wait to see what kind of list I'll come up with at the end of 2020. See you soon.